Well, joining me now is Kelly Sadler, former special assistant to President Trump. She's now the director of communications at America First Policies and America First Action. Kind of takes sort of the glimmer away from middle-class Joe, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you shouldn't go into politics looking for a big payout once you leave. You know, Joe Biden he wasn't a plumber. He wasn't a cook. He came into government to serve the American people. And like all too many of these politicians that come here to Washington, D.C., once they leave, they go on these speaking tours demanding $100,000 just to show up, where they have the green room stocked with the foods that they like and the beverages that they like and the cushy lifestyle that they like, and get in for this ultimate payout. So,
right.
Yeah, no, he's not a middle-class Joe. He's a millionaire Joe.
Well, so is Bernie Sanders. He's a socialist millionaire. I mean, it's funny because today Bernie Sanders, it's not funny, it's pathetic, actually. Bernie Sanders condemned Mr. Steyer, the billionaire activist, for getting in the race. He said he's a friend, but he doesn't like the idea of billionaires running for office. But what about millionaires, Bernie? I mean, you know, it's okay for them to do well. It's just not okay for others to have that much money.
Yeah, in regards to Tom Steyer, I think it's kind of funny, actually. He's a billionaire donor to Democrats. He's one of their biggest donors. The fact that he looked at this field and said, heck, there's room here. I don't need to donate money to any of these guys already in the race. I should enter it myself is hilarious.
It is. All right, let me just ask you to take a piece of this story of the appeals court in New York ruling that the president can't block users on his own Twitter account. What do you think of that?
Well, you know, there is a lot to be said here and a lot that wasn't said in this ruling. For example, do government officials have to abide by these same standards? Can they block or not on their personal account? And what about social media companies? If we're treating this as a public utility, then shouldn't they have the same standards for freedom of press and First Amendment rights? If you look at what these social media companies are doing, they are blocking conservative content. They're skewing and they're censoring conservatives, and this came out in the poll that you previously mentioned.
Right.
But I take a look today. Today was a very interesting day. If you go on Twitter, if you go on Google right now and you type in Clinton and Epstein, you get 0 Google search mentions.
Unbelievable.
But if you do Epstein Trump, there's a bunch of suggestions and the suggestions. And if you go on Google Images and ask for Epstein and Clinton, there are no images of them linked together. The whole thing has been scrubbed today. And those are anecdotes, but that's what will be discussed on Thursday with the White House Social Media Summit.
We should have mentioned that. There's a big social media summit at the White House. The Google, by the way, they began changing those algorithms, making them far more liberal than they used to be about 2 or 3 years ago. I remember because when I do any climate change, if I did any climate change skeptic, if I search for that in the old days, you used to get a whole lot of articles. In the new days, it's just those things that dump on the skeptics of climate change. Let me ask you, though, about Jared Kushner and the coming campaign, because he was very successful at using social media. He was on the cover of Forbes magazine after the election, revealing how he used social media in a very positive way for the Trump administration. I'm just wondering, they must be alerted to that. Facebook and the rest of them are going to try to block anybody from the Trump campaign from using social media, right?
Well, we've already seen Dan Scavino, who is the social media director at the White House. Facebook took away his account because they thought he was a bot. I mean, he is a public official all over the place, and the fact that they suspended his account because they thought he was a bot is problematic. I mean, his account is now back up and running, but you never see these sorts of biases coming from the other side. You don't ever see liberals blocked. You don't ever see their account suspended. It only seems to be aimed at conservatives. And so this is something that the president is looking at. It's something that the Hill is looking at. Senator Ted Cruz is looking at. And, you know, Representative Nunes has a lawsuit out against Twitter for the inherent bias. And I think this is something we're going to be seeing a lot more in the future and as this campaign progresses.
Well, you know, they're the algorithms, but they're also the moderators. You know, Twitter has these moderators that can take apart, decide for themselves what hate speech is. And as we've seen before, very often hate speech to one is not hate speech to another.
Well, Marsha Blackburn, for example, when she ran for Senate, Twitter basically said she had a campaign ad that mentioned Planned Parenthood, and they suspended the ad. They wouldn't let her run it on Twitter because they thought it was hate speech. Are you kidding me? And again, this just seems to happen to conservatives running for office, not the other way around.
Kelly Sadler, best of luck. Let us know what happens at the social media conference. That'll be interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Coming up next to the news.